everything you need to know about Summoner Necromancer, why Blood Golem is the best, and how to reach level 96 in only a couple of hours with already having most of your glyphs level 15. We're going to break down the gear, Paragon board, and especially skills from level 1 to 100 and when to swap from Sever to Blight. Because Sever is actually better for leveling, and then later, Blight is king. Step 1, let's talk about our golems first. The Bone Golem is actually the fastest attacking one from a per hit basis, while the Blood Golem is in the middle, and the Iron Golem attacks 100% slower. He's like really... Yes, he might do this amazing every second attack, but that is actually only good if he would be attacking super fast. Now you're going to say, well, we're boosting their attack speed, sure, but if the Blood Golem attacks so much faster already, and the Bone Golem too, boosting their attack speed gets a net total of more attacks than just your single boom. But that's not actually the part why the Blood Golem is so much better. It is in the ability and how it reads. When the Blood Golem heals itself with its active ability, you're healed by 5% of your maximum life. That's amazing, right? We just heal. But while your Blood Golem is healthy, they gain 25% damage reduction and 50% increased damage. There's one thing that isn't written in here for some weird reason, because if you're hovering over the Golem ability, damage and healing received are tripled if only one enemy is drained. Huh? Where's that coming from? Which means that if you're fighting versus bosses, suddenly with all the damage multipliers, the 150%, the 75%, the 200%, your Golem does another triple damage? Well, hello there. Now let me wipe my skill tree clean and just walk you through the levels 1 to 50 respective, then afterwards to 100. We're beginning with Reap into Enhanced Reap, and you'll never put a further point in because we're going to be stop using our basic skill around level 25 because we simply don't have space anymore for Reap. Next levels is in Sever into Enhanced Sever and then Supernatural Sever. And the cool part is that's an instant 14% damage increase. And if you find the minion aspect, that's another 4 more minions, another 8% damage increase. And Sever in general is a nice area damage skill. Put a point into Hood Flash, and in the very beginning, we're going to be using Corpse Explosion together with Grim Harvest, and then all the points into Skeletal Warrior Mastery. Excuse me, I already have some points in there. And yes, we'll talk about which items can actually take the passives right now and where is it most optimal to place them. Now, after spending these points, we could already jam Skeletal Mage Mastery, but it's a bit too early. So you'd rather just boost your Grim Harvest to essentially get more essence, get more damage out of your Sever, to then straight up go for Corpse Tendrils, Enhanced Corpse Tendrils, and Plague Corpse Tendrils, with then 3 points into Skeletal Mage Mastery. And as soon as you're level 25 and you would unlock your Golem and your Army of the Dead. Let's put 1 point into Necrotic Carapace so we're down there. And yes, Necrotic Carapace works. When a corpse is formed from your skills or your minions fortified for 2% of your maximum life, 1 point has been enough if you're using the Skeletal Reapers. Now with 3 points into Golem Mastery and your Skeletal Mages active, you're essentially going to be having Raised Skeletons, Corpse Explosion, Golem, Corpse Tendrils, Sever, and then we're going to be starting to put points into Army of the Dead, Prime Army of the Dead. You technically don't need Supreme Army of the Dead later because your units will actually survive, but it doesn't hurt to have in the beginning. And that's where Reap goes out and gets replaced by Army of the Dead. And you're simply going to be retaining essence by severing, corpse explosioning, raising skeletons, and using cold mages. Because the Skeletal Warriors while leveling is mostly Reapers for the bonus corpses. Then the Skeletal Mages are not Shadow, they're actually Frost for that 3 essence bonus. So you really can just spam your Sever since they're going to have immense bonus attack speed. And then the Golem on Blood Golem is able to just suck bosses dry. Back to the skills. Yes, we'll use Decrepify later, but we're not there yet. Next, 1 point goes in Inspiring Leader, and then 3 points into Hellbound Commander. And as the passive, we're going to take Callan's Edict, because that's just the best attack speed boost you can ever get in the beginning. Sure, later on we'll be playing Shadow Blight and Shadow Mages, but that's not the point right now. Callan's Edict is just for leveling perfection. We're then going to jam more points into Sever, Hood Flash, and finally Fueled by Death for that damage multiplier. Now, if you ever feel like you're struggling, if you're dying too much, if you're taking too much damage, the next 3 points for now go into Spiked Armor. They will give you Thorns, so you're dealing a bit more Thorns damage, and you get 15% more armor to just be a bit more sturdy. it's nice to have. Next 3 points into Death Approach because you just want to move a bit quicker around the world. And then Inspiring Leader for that maximum critical strike damage for you and your minions, because everything you do is kind of critical striking. Now, since you sever and actually do shadow damage, you can go for Reaper's Pursuit to boost your movement speed as well. Before you ask, Death Defense and Bonded in Essence are both useless, because the Death Defense, your minions gain increased armor and resistance. They have your armor. If you have high armor, they don't need more armor. There's nothing that you can do for them with this skill. The Bonded in Essence gives you more heal, but that heal, they're healing enough. You're using the Skeletal Priest for the bonus damage. And more points in Bonded Essence does not magically increase their damage. And before you ask about Blood Mist is your oh shit, get out of jail button. But for that, you do have the Golem, because the Golem and his ability do make you unstoppable. So if you get into a situation where you're stunned or weirdly taken out of commission, the Golem can save you. Right now it has a 9-second cooldown, which can be vastly reduced with Golem active cooldown reduction tempering by 25%, and yes, you guessed right, by another 25%. And that's probably the only part where the Blood Golem is a bit worse than the other two, because the Iron Golem has a cooldown of 5.69 seconds, can use his ability way more often, whereas the Blood Golem again does so much more damage. Last 9 skill points I like to jam into Gloom, Terror, then 1 into Crippling Darkness for the stun, and 2 more into the Reaper's Pursuit, just for zooming around. That's for more shadow damage, that's for stacking more shadow damage, and all in all, it just makes your Sever hurt them harder. Now, you could, instead of boosting this up, also invest your points into Unliving Energy and Imperfectly Balanced, but a lot of you have been complaining about essence issues, that they struggle to keep this up because you're not used to actually using your Corpse Explosion very much, and that will alleviate this issue if you do run into it. Now, how do we transition though now into that Golem one-hit Decrepify cooldown reduction build, and when do we do it? And that comes a bit down to the equipment you're dropping. I did swap when I got a Shadowblight key passive aspect in extremely good, and as I had a Frenzied Den. Because Frenzied Den is quite mandatory to ever swap away from Callan's Edict. That one gives you a 45% attack speed boost. And your number one goal is to always reach 100% attack speed for your minions, so they get a 150% damage multiplier. And in order to reach that smoothly without Callan's Edict, you need at least your first Paragon board and your second Paragon board, because that will provide you another 2.5, 2.5, and 5% minion attack speed. That's 10% more. Together with Frenzied Den on your amulet, that is 68% bonus. I'm currently exactly at that 100%. Actually, it's 99, so I would have to re-roll the minion attack speed here to get to that 22%, and then I would exactly perfectly land at the 100% bonus. But then you can cut Callan's Edict and things do change, because this one provides you currently with 3% for each active minion. If 11 active minions, 33% bonus. 33% bonus together with Frenzied Den kind of gets you there too without ever needing anything Paragon shebang related. But now we can cut this out and we can add in Shadowblight. And Shadowblight stacks up with you and your minion the Shadowblight damage. And yes, before you ask, your mages can stack up Shadowblight too. And now we get 3% increased damage for each active Shadow Mage, which is 5 active mages, 15% damage increase for myself. My minions get my stats, so they get 15% damage increase too. And we're going to be swapping the Sever, all the points out, over to the Blight, because Blight slows now and gives us a 20% increased damage to you and your minions. So again, another damage multiplier coming in hot. Last point out of Sever, so we have 4 free points. And in this case, we don't need Corpse Explosion anymore. Now, the only way to restore Essence is over Grim Harvest. Consume Corpses generates Essence when you're then consuming corpses with the Ray Skeleton. But don't worry, you're also going to go for Essence per second on your items, and that helps so much. To never really struggle in any way. The 5 free points are going to be jammed into Decrepify with Enhanced Decrepify and Abhorrent Decrepify for the cooldown reduction that we can spam Army of the Dead more, and 2 more points into Amplified Damage. Now, I would yoink out another point out of Reaper's Pursuit to really have that 3 and 3 amplified damage going. Don't forget that if you reach your armor cap without spiked armor, you do have another 3 points for free. And these 3 points are best invested into Blight, because you're going to shoot it anyways, it's there anyways, so why wouldn't it be doing more damage? Which brings your skill bar to play Ray Skeleton, Blight, Golem, Corpse Tendrils, Army of the Dead, and Decrepify. And your gameplay loop is pretty simple. You throw in your blight to pull together the enemies. We'll talk about the aspects in a second. Your skeletons just run in and go crazy. Your golem sucks everyone dry. Corpse tendril pulling things together with a bonus corpse tendril size. And Army of the Dead whenever it's available for bonus damage boosting. The cool part here is with the Decrepify and all your things going on, you're literally going to reduce the cooldown tremendously. And if you notice that you always have enough corpses, you can take your Skeletal Reapers and swap over to the cooldown reduction. Because the Reapers do every 10-second a wind-up attack, and that wind-up attack will reduce one active cooldown. And that could either be your Golem, your Corpse Tendrils, or it will be your Army of the Dead, bringing this even lower than before. Now to the gear and Skeletal Mastery rolls. My gloves are perfect. They have critical strike chance for me and the minions, very needed. Critical strike damage, same there, for the minions to hit harder. And then Skeletal Mage Mastery greater affix. If you put gloves into the enchanter, you can see the possible affixes. And there you can see Skeletal Mage Mastery is the only one to get. No Golem, no Warrior, nothing. Looking at pans, they can also get Skeletal Mage Mastery and nothing else, which has them just be a carrier for maximum life, intelligence, and then total armor and corpse tendril size. Instead of int or max life, you could also take just an armor roll to push this higher up. For the tempering on gloves, we're taking golem damage. You could take summoning damage to boost everyone's, but the golem is just the highest roll, and then increase the corpse tendril size further. What we're trying to reach is a 100% increase in corpse tendril size. You can't go over that. Boots are very important. They can have essence per second, then an intelligence roll or an armor roll if needed, and skeletal warrior mastery is possible. Alternative, you could get ranks and corpse skills, which is not needed, or corpse tendrils, but for the bone spirit build, bone spirit is a thing. Now the tempering here is looking for more corpse tendrils and then just a flat out movement speed. Your weapon is incredibly important because you need minion attack speed tempering on that, and well, here you want golem damage too because it can go extremely high, up to 200%. I'm currently taking vulnerable damage, maximum life, and intelligence. The maximum life is incredible, but instead of the vulnerable damage, I'd rather take critical strike damage because that's a 100% increase. Aspects on the gloves is currently the blighted aspect for that 120% bonus damage. On our pens, we're playing Hardened Bones for the 25% damage reduction to you and the minions, which is incredibly useful. And the boots are running the aspect of the Void to actually pull things together with your blind. That is awesome to essentially bully things around. Alternative to Void, you could play the hulking aspect. Your golem has a 12% chance to reduce its active cooldown by 2 seconds, so even more golem shebang, and a 6% chance to spawn a corpse each time it damages an enemy with its normal attack. Given that the blood golem has a good attack speed, that's quite nice. If you want to pull things together, Void quite nice, gives you a bit more room to move around. The Torturous aspect might give a net total of more damage. And on the weapon, we're playing Unyielding Commander because that's just the biggest damage boost, a 200% increase in damage. You get this one out after you made sure that your Flesh Eater Paragon node, 5 corpses consumed, is triggered. Press Army of the Dead, and you get that 40% damage multiplier together with a 200% multiplier. Boom, straight up kicking out. And if you made sure that your Shadow Blight Keep has stacked up 10 times beforehand, suddenly you get a damage burst that just obliterates a boss in a millisecond. For the ring, the tempering is golem damage and golem active cooldown reduction. Amazing. Currently have a greater affix on intelligence, looking for critical strike chance and actually critical strike damage over time. Because damage over time only boosts me, but no one else, so critical strike damage is a must here. Same goes for the second ring, but I needed resistance to all elements for a second because I couldn't craft highest quality diamonds yet. Yes, I'm running around with those shitty diamonds instead of royal diamonds. That would push me up all the way. So instead of intelligence, critical strike chance, and max damage, that's what I have here, plus the golem active cooldown and the golem damage tempering. Which brings us to the Necklace of the Frenzied Dead. Yes, Frenzied Dead on here for the maximum attack speed bonus. We're currently running the Hellbane Commander with maximum life and an intelligence percentage. Here, alternative, you could take another attack speed roll to get you over that 100%, make it a bit easier without Callan's Edict. And you could go for ranks and amplified damage to do more damage against cursed enemies. And yes, no more ranks in golem or anything on the amulet. That's what your chest piece is there for, because the chest piece can actually have ranks into golem mastery. Also corpse explosion, by the way. And the chest is currently having maximum life per second, and cold resistance, which is absolutely unacceptable. And hell, if you struggle with resistance, you could take resistance to all elements on it. The aspect is currently Dominion for 2 and 2 more mages and warriors. Then our helmet can provide us with essence per second too. Important. Normal armor roll on it, maximum life and corpse tundle size. Could also go for a total armor percentage roll if you need it. And then your skeletal priests now also empower you for 67% effectiveness. And that one is incredible because now the priest heals us and gives us bonus damage too. And if we get bonus damage, well, our minions get bonus damage as well. Later, you might notice that this 25% damage reduction is not needed because you're getting along with the Paragon board, your glyphs, your fortify, and everything. Then these pans can actually be kicked out for the unique called a Temerity. And Temerity gives you barrier on overheal. Now, if you're running a two-handed size, then you will get life on kill that overheals you. Your skeletal priest that empowers you overheals you as well, and that means you're continuously generating free barrier that will then provide the damage reduction needed to survive. Tried that out on PTR, worked excellent, but need Temerity for it. Lastly, the Paragon board, and here a switch was necessary because we are straight up going into Cult Leader as our first board. We're running as the glyph Corporal. Corporal goes up with a lot of resistance to all elements. It gives us physical damage bonus and a movement speed bonus. Now do keep in mind, I mostly play this for the movement speed bonus. And our Golem is physical damage to have him do more damage as well. Your Reapers do more damage too, but your Shadow Mages don't get influenced by this. So it's a bit of an awkward one, but it also boosts our armor gain here and our all damage gain. So the armor gain is actually quite useful to just push us to the cap. Then we're having the Debt Razor glyph for the bonus damage and damage reduction to our minions. And that's where the damage reduction comes in. Don't even have these 2 points taken right now because I needed my points to push further, but that's even more damage reduction going out. And it's quite a lot, to be fair. And then you're going to be trying to cap the Cult Leader as soon as possible while going over the Puppeteer node for the bonus attack speed. Ignore this because the resistance to all elements is stupid. Sure, I would like to have the more mage damage and I would like to have the more warrior damage, but the only one that's really worth it is the mage damage here, since you're going to be standing close to them for the Hellbent Commander, where standing close to the warriors is not always given. The second board you're going into is actually the Hulking Monstrosity, because that's the 100% damage multiplier you're having. And for the convenience of going through the board and being able to activate more things, because this is currently the level 96 board, we just zoom through. Yes, you can see this one is not 15 yet, but we will actually activate this as we have it 15 because here is the willpower nodes to be taken. Now this is though the realistic snapshot of how it looks like while you're leveling. In the description below there's a link to the full Paragon board as you then crested 100. But this is how you'll do it as you zoom through, because we don't have the Golem damage and Golem attack speed node taken down here, and you technically don't even need it because you're at 100% attack speed for your Golem already. But it is a 50% bonus damage. More interesting is this one, damage while Golems are active, and armor while Golem is active. Gives us a bit more total armor to bring us up, but if I get more damage while Golem is active, everyone gets more damage while Golem is active, because that's how the damage sharing works. That brings us into the Flesh Eater board for more critical strike damage with the bonus of damage to elites and erudite for more resistance to all elements. You do notice that these are not activated because we don't have enough dex and willpower, so make sure to actually pick up enough dex and willpower nodes. Don't focus too much on intelligence nodes if you have the opportunity to essentially go over a bonus willpower node instead of over a bonus intelligence node on your pathing. Like here, for example, this is an intelligence node, but rather take the willpower because we're going to be boosting our intelligence anyways over our gear. And if you get these nodes activated, that's more worth it than the bonus of intelligence. Now we're zooming down through the board, and here you do want to take your Essence Glyph while going through the Bloodbath board. Currently only 30 out of 25 dex activated. This is going to be even more dex activated, that you get the maximum amount of critical strike damage and your minions get the 22% killer multiplier. And then lastly, into the Scent of Death for the damage reduction or the bonus damage as all corpses are consumed. And this is actually more often bonus damage versus bosses than not, because we're playing the Reapers for cooldown reduction and not for corpse production, which then allows us to have always enough corpses for the Flesh Eater, but never too many corpses that we wouldn't get even more bonus damage. And we're thinking currently about the Territorial Glyph for the damage reduction from close enemies. Alternative Darkness is an option, because whenever you or your minions deal shadow damage to an enemy, the enemy deals 10% reduced damage. Which would give me and the Shadow Mages more shadow damage, and at the same time make us all survive a little bit more. Very good thought. Now some words about the leveling and the key points when to knock out certain content. I did do the capstone dungeon at level 35, the first one. Super simple. Could have done it at 32 or 33. 35 is perfect though because you can put on sacred gear with level 35. And as soon as you beat the capstone dungeon, you go to the Purveyor of Curiosities and oboe gamble for a full set of high-leveled sacred gear. The same you do as you get into World Tier 4 with level 55. Go to the oboe vendor, get yourself a full set of gear of 850 plus ancestral legendary gear. Boom, just like that, because you'll have the obols for it. And keep in mind now when it comes down to nightmare dungeons, don't start doing them until you have knocked out the seasonal blessing for the Urn of Nightmares. Yes, I started doing nightmare dungeons straight up at tier 41 nightmare dungeons with level 70. Okay, level 70, tier 41 nightmare dungeons. How do you do this? You pick up the first glyph you get from the Tree of Whispers, which will be a tier 21 glyph. You do 2 to 3 nightmare dungeons to then instantly craft yourself a tier 41 glyph. And you can knock this out easily at level 70. Boom. And from this point on, you'll progress through. And I've done tier 73 nightmare dungeons from level 80, 85 on to get 400 glyph XP per nightmare dungeon, to just push my Paragon board forward like crazy. Yeah, I'm not even 100 yet, and I have all the glyphs I need 15'd out. If you want to see the level journey unfold, there's the live stream. And if you're still new to the season and lacking some advice, we get you covered with some good quality tips. Thank you for watching. Minions arise.